very much. It's great to be here in Tucson. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, John. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the warm welcome here in Tucson. Well, bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it is great. It is great. Well, I tell you, it's like I feel like I'm at a church getting like a call and response here. All right. It is really great to be here in Tucson, and I wanted to make the time because I know all the activity is in and around the Phoenix area for the debate, and all the candidates are around there. But I wanted to let the folks down here in the southern part of the state who are grappling with the big and tough issues of the day to know that you have a candidate who cares about it enough to come here and talk to you and listen to what you say. It's great to be here. I know. I mean, I get a chance to meet some folks before, and we'll take some time afterwards to get a chance to say hi to folks and take even a couple of questions, because if this is a Tea Party event, I don't do Tea Party events without taking questions, because it's always an interaction. I believe in that. I am so grateful, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I am so grateful for what the Tea Party has done to revitalize the conservative spirit within the Republican Party and to elevate, again, a very, very important document in our country, and that's the Constitution of this country. So thank you for what you've done. By the way, here is that Constitution. I just want you to know. So I really do thank you for what you've done. If not for the Tea Party, we would not have had a successful 2010 election. We would not have been able to stop the insanity that was going on in Washington, D.C. with a huge explosion of government program after government program. And at least we have put a stop to a lot of the more bad things happening. But that is only step one. Step two is essential. And if we're going to turn this country around and restore it to those constitutional principles that you folks believe in, we're going to have to defeat Barack Obama in this election right here in Arizona. I'm here today because I think I'm the candidate who presents the best opportunity to do that. I wouldn't be running for office. I really wouldn't be. I wouldn't be running for office if I didn't think that I provided the best chance to accomplish what we needed. Number one, to beat Barack Obama. But number two is just as important. We don't need Pyrrhic victories. We need a victory that actually is going to have consequence. We've had too many elections where too many politicians have promised what you wanted to hear based on what was popular at the moment. But what we need are candidates that you can trust who are going to do what is necessary and what you believe needs to be done to turn this country back around. Well, I think that's important for you as you make a big decision here in Arizona next week. You're going to have a huge impact. Everybody's focused in on Super Tuesday. And there are a lot of states up on Super Tuesday. But more than anything else, what happens in Michigan and Arizona next week is going to have the biggest impact on Super Tuesday in this election than any two states. And so I encourage you to actually look at the records of the candidates, look at what the candidates are saying they're for, and judge for yourself whether you think they have the courage, whether they have the character, whether they have the ability, whether they have the drive to make those things happen once they get to Washington. And the best way you can do that is to look at what these candidates have done in the past. And look at when things were tough, where they ended up. And I encourage you to look at the record and look at the vision. And when you do that, I'm confident that you will find that the person who has got the strongest, most consistent conservative record of limiting spending, of shrinking the size of government, of voting for pro-growth policies, of voting for less government control of your life, of supporting the basic institutions, founding institutions of our country, life, family, community, churches, and religious liberties. If you look at the candidates in this race, you'll find one candidate who has been unafraid to go out and fight on all of the issues that we care about, who's been unafraid to go out on national security, and at a time when our country was looking to try to get out of the Iraq War back in 2006, talked about how we had to win in Iraq, how we had to confront a prospective nuclear Iran. Look at the record, and then look at versus the rhetoric of what you see of, in many cases, Johnny-come-latelys to the conservative cause. That's the decision you have to make here in Arizona. Who do you trust? Who's authentic? Who's believable? Is it the guy reading from the teleprompter, or the guy out here on a high wire line telling you what's in his heart, what's in his gut? Ladies and gentlemen, that's what I think America's looking for. They're looking for authenticity. Someone that they know is going to do what they say because they know that they believe in what they say they believe in. And that's for you here in Arizona, to give that candidate the opportunity to serve. And so I'm here today to talk to you about the important issues of the day and what I would do to help move this country in the right direction. I do so as I come from Western Pennsylvania. I don't know if you probably know any Pennsylvanians around here. A couple. Here we go. A few. I know the weather's a little better here. But you know, I come from the steel town of Western Pennsylvania. I grew up Butler, Pennsylvania. Thank you. Nah, you haven't been to Butler, Pennsylvania. No, sorry. You've been to Butler? Okay, all right, one. I grew up in a little steel town of Butler, Pennsylvania. I grew up the son of an immigrant. I suspect there are a few people here who are immigrants or sons and daughters of immigrants. And that was a wonderful experience. It was a rich experience in growing up in a home with parents and grandparents who valued what America offered that was different than the country they came from. I believe in immigration because it is a wellspring of people who want to come here legally to not because of anything other than the fact that they want to be Americans. You see, when my grandfather came to the United States in 1925, there weren't all these government benefit programs. There was no government benefit programs in the United States, except one: freedom. And that was enough. It's the reason most people come to this country today, because in America, people around the world look at the opportunity that you can live your dreams, you can reap the fruits of your labor, you can educate your children in a way that's consistent with your values. You can worship the way you want, not just in the church, but outside the church in every aspect of your life. We are that beacon of hope, and we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to continue to be that beacon. But there are those who have come to this country illegally. And I share the concern that many people have about, well, you know, what are we going to do with all these people here in America? Well, I look at it from the standpoint of my grandfather. When my grandfather came to this country, he came in 1925. He came by himself. He left his family behind, his young children, his wife. He left them after having served in World War I, where he was away from it for a long period even during that time. But he came to America, sacrificed 5 years of his life, worked in the auto factories for a couple of years, and then in the coal mines in a company town for 3 more years, until he was able to fulfill the requirements and then be able to bring the rest of the family over. And so I understand the heartache when some people say, well, what happens if you send people back? They're going to be separated from their families. That's right. America's worth it to do it the right way. laws, and the best way you can show your respect for our country is to respect our laws. And so this is not a hostile, this is just who we are. And if you want to be part of who we are, then be part of who we are. Right? And the government has an additional responsibility to keep our country safe. You hear a lot of talk from me, as I mentioned just earlier, about the threats that we have around this world. And we do have serious threats that this president is uniformly making worse. He's making this place a much more making the world a much more dangerous place as he continues to pull America back and allow those who seek to do harm to freedom, those who seek to oppress, yes, evil forces around the world. As Ronald Reagan was courageous enough to go out and speak about the forces of evil, not just around the world, but by the way, in this country, go read the speech. He went out and identified clearly. Why? Because America stands for something. We stand for goodness. We stand for freedom. We stand for human rights. The dignity of every human person. That is who we are. That is why we are that shining city on the hill that the rest of the world looks to. And even if they can't come here, they take inspiration from what we built here, that maybe they can do the same in their own country. And yet our president refuses to call evil evil. Refuses to even name it. Refuses to confront it. Tries to appease and cajole it in an effort to reduce America's commitments around the world. That if we just have paper, or we just try to make nice with those who are actively doing harm to America and its allies, that somehow or another that threat will go away or will be ameliorated. And what we have found is that is simply, from history, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We can talk all we want with the Iranian government. But the Iranian government is, in fact, a theocracy that is actively engaged in harming the United States, holding our hostages, killing our troops through the production of IEDs and other avenues, of which our troops for over 30 years have been assaulted by the Iranian government. They have a radical theocracy that is trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And imagine a nuclear Iran who would feel absolutely no qualms about exercising its radical theology and promoting terrorism and other types of horrors around the world with the protection of a nuclear shield. It's not just that Iran may drop a bomb on Israel, which they have now repeatedly said, most recently last week, that Israel is a cancer that must be excised from the Middle East. And they talked about the concentrations of Jews in 3 cities so they could wipe out the Jewish population of Israel, wipe out the Jewish population of the world, another thing they talked about in this memo. These are folks who hold in Tehran Holocaust-denying conferences. And what does the president do? Oh, let's negotiate with them. Let's talk to them because they're reasonable people. Oh, really? These are reasonable people. The sad part is there are a huge number of Iranians who are reasonable people, who are protesting, trying to overthrow this theocracy. And what did the President of the United States do? Of all the countries that were experiencing an Arab Spring, of all the countries, what was the one country President Obama refused to help? Iran. Oh, he'll help them. the Muslim Brotherhood overthrow our ally in Egypt. He'll help use military force to overthrow a feckless old dictator in Libya that was no threat to the United States. But when it comes to Syria and Iran, oh, we're going to establish diplomatic relationship with the satellite government of Iran and Syria. And then sit on the sidelines forever until the rest of the world says, you know, why aren't you trying to help move Assad out? And still to this point, no support for what's going on and trying to get rid of this puppet of Iran in Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, this president is making our job of keeping ourselves and our allies safe and secure much more difficult every day. On top of that, he is undermining actively our friends. Actively undermining our friends. Israel. Look what he's doing to Israel. The litany is long of all the things that the president's done to undermine Israel. Whether it's saying they have to negotiate from the pre-67 borders, that they can't embargo against those who want to come into their country and do harm. Or that they revealed that Israel is actually planning attacks. What friend tells the rest of the world and the enemies of that friend what their military plans are? And then denounces them and encourages the world to do likewise. Some friend we are to the state of Israel. That's the most pronounced, but there are lots of others. Look at what, we haven't even talked about what we're doing to the United Kingdom. Our friends in Great Britain, we're now having controversies again with the Falkland Islands in Argentina. And what position do we take? Oh, we're neutral. Ronald Reagan wasn't neutral. He stood behind Maggie Thatcher and stood behind our allies. National security is a huge issue in this campaign. And of course, there's no bigger issue of national security than securing the southern border of this country. You have my pledge that the laws that are in place to actually secure the border that have not been enforced by this president are executed, of building the wall to make sure that we have all of the technology and all of the physical barriers that are necessary not to have a border that is 42% secure, according to the General Accounting Office. I don't know about you, but if you build a fence 42% around the perimeter of your house, would you feel secure? I don't know where they come up with 42% secure. How can you be 42% secure? You're either secure or you're not. Right? So you have my pledge that we will secure this border. We will deal with the issue of the drug violence and the cartels. We will work with the Mexican government to make sure that we have relationships there that can help strengthen their economy, deal with the national security threats to our country at the border, and secure the border so the people in Arizona can live in peace and prosperity just like every other state in the country. And getting to that peace and prosperity, we need to do two things to turn this country around economically. First, we have to get the government off the backs of the American people and American business. I put forward a plan that does both. Grow this economy by changing the tax code. I just saw today that Governor Romney announced that he was going to be lowering the tax rates to, well, the tax rate I proposed. Welcome to the party, Governor. It's great to have you along. We cut first the corporate tax in half, 17.5%. It's now the largest tax. It's the highest tax in the world. As of April 1, it will be when Japan cuts theirs. So we will have the highest corporate tax in the world. We'll cut it in half and make it a flat tax. In other words, and this is really important, because you see, I believe the engine of growth in America is small business. It's that entrepreneur and that small business person who's nimble, who can respond to the marketplace, who can take an idea and grow it into a big business. And the government is increasingly making it harder for those small businesses to compete against the behemoth corporations that thrive, understand this, that thrive when government gets big. You see, I always say, you know, you hear this mantra, oh, that Republicans are the party of big business. No, we're not. No, we're not. Look at where all the big business and big Wall Street money goes. Not to us, to them. Why? Because they like big. Big government's great for them. Because it crushes the little guy who can't hire another guy in the compliance department to deal with the new regulation. Can't hire another person in the tax department to deal with the complexity of the new tax law. It's the little guy that gets crushed. And so when we take the corporate tax and basically throw that corporate tax code away and replace it with a net profits tax, that means big corporations and little corporations on the same playing field are going to pay the same percentage of taxes. That is a level playing field that small businesses can win. One other particular area that I strongly believe in. As I mentioned, I come from Butler, Pennsylvania, which is a steel town. My grandfather was an auto worker and a coal miner most of his life. And I believe in those blue-collar jobs that help those at the bottom rungs of society to be able to climb that ladder of success. Those who didn't maybe get the best education, but still have a good, strong work ethic and are willing to make the sacrifices to be able to improve their lot in life, move up the chain. It's always been that way in America, ever since the society moved to an industrial society. We had the opportunity to get those better paying jobs with better benefits and then climb that ladder of success so the next generation could do better. We didn't envy in this country those of us who grew up in that area of the world. We didn't envy those who did very well. We actually appreciated the fact that they were investing in plant and equipment and creating jobs here in America, and that was a good thing. And now a lot of those first people who are creating the economy of the future are creating great products, great innovations, and they're doing well. And those who are designing those products and innovating are doing well too. Those who own stocks in the company are doing well. But the folks who have been left behind are the people who were making those products because they're not made here as much as they were before. That trickle down, not that was mocked in the 80s, but the real trickle down of having the innovation and the products manufactured here in this country so everybody can participate. We become uncompetitive. People say, well, it's because the American worker is too expensive. Well, that's an element of it. But we're uncompetitive for a lot of other reasons. We have the highest tax rate in the world. We have the highest regulatory burden in the world. We have one of the worst litigation climates in the world. And we have a high cost of capital and an uncertain energy environment, thanks to this president. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we put a plan together not just that will help manufacturing grow, and we will, but this plan will help every element of the economy. And it's a comprehensive plan that's different than everybody else. All the folks on the Republican side are out there, oh, we're going to cut the top rate. We have to have supply-side economics. I'm for supply-side economics. But I'm for supply-side economics that works for the working man, as well as the folks at the top of the scale. And so we have a little different plan. It's different than Barack Obama's, whose plan for the working man is food stamps and more government dependence. Our plan says, let's get those manufacturing jobs back here to this country. Let's grow the workforce, which it is right now at 9% of the overall workforce of America is involved in manufacturing. When I was a kid, it was 21%. Can we get those jobs back? Yeah, we can. If we get government out of the way so you can be competitive here in America. And how are we going to do that? We're going to take the corporate tax and eliminate it for manufacturers to create a level playing field with all of those countries around the world who are doing all sorts of things to steal our jobs. So we're going to eliminate the corporate tax. We're going to say to those who did send your jobs overseas and made money, it's about $1.7 trillion in profits overseas that are sitting there in foreign banks, only to be reinvested, because if they come back here, they're going to get taxed at 35%. Under our plan, you bring it back to Tucson and invest it in plant and equipment, you pay zero tax, and we create an opportunity for you to invest in America. And then energy. We're looking at $4 a gallon for gasoline, and they're saying by the summer drive time in areas of this country it'll hit $5 a gallon. And the president yesterday, his people came out and said the reason he didn't build the Keystone Pipeline, it was the Republicans' fault. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, how stupid does he think you are? That he can go out and blame everybody for everything bad except himself. Is that leadership? I mean, think about that. Would you tell your children to do this? I mean, the President of the United States, in many respects, is an example. And here you have the President continually blaming everybody and everything except himself for the problems that confront this country. On energy, he has nobody to blame from himself. This president has done everything he could to shut down energy exploration, whether it was a moratorium in the Gulf or offshore, on federal lands, not just oil and gas exploration, but mining. The same thing on Alaska, where he's opposed the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. Anybody ever see a picture of it? Now, if you go on the radical environmental groups' websites, you'll see pristine lakes and snow-capped mountains. That's Alaska. Well, that is Alaska, but it's not the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. I don't know what wildlife is there, by the way, it isn't much. But what does it look like? It's on the coastal plain. You all know about plains out here. It's flat. It is a tundra. It is frozen 10 months out of the year. It has very little vegetation or life. Now, we're drilling oil and gas wells in Pennsylvania, about 3,000 to 4,000 this year. We're drilling them next to farmers' homes and barns. We're building them next to suburban areas. And guess what? We're not really affecting the habitat dramatically. Why? Because we do it safer than any other country in the world. And yet, we can't drill in the most remote section of Alaska. Why? It's a radical ideology. That's what it's about. Here are the real consequences for us, folks. Within 5 to 10 years, we're going to lose the Alaska production. Not because it's going to run out, but it's gradually being depleted. And when it gets down to 350,000 barrels a day, the pipeline shuts down. Why? Because they have to heat the oil to put it in the pipeline. And it cools. Lower volume, cools quicker, doesn't flow. So within 5 to 10 years, Alaska's gone. 500,000 barrels a day. Mexico, 1.5 million barrels a day coming into this country. Within 5 to 10 years, Mexico will be an importer of oil, not an exporter. Venezuela, 2.5 million barrels a day. Guess who's building a refinery in Venezuela? China. Guess where that oil's going? There you have it. 4 to 5 million barrels a day. Gone in the next 5 to 10 years. I was up in the Bakken, North Dakota. The Detroit Economic Club, I brought a big chunk of oil shale. Looks like a piece of coal. And I said, this, ladies and gentlemen, is oil. That's how they get it. They get it out of rock. Can't get blood out of a stone? Wrong. In North Dakota, you can get oil out of a stone. And they can do the same with oil sands in Canada. That can replace a big chunk of what we're going to lose in the next 5 to 10 years. We need to start building a pipeline so it's completed. When those reserves go offline for America, and what did the President of the United States do? Said no. I had someone ask me, do you think the President really has a plan to increase oil prices? Sometimes I scratch my head at the media that it's just sometimes beyond them to put rational thoughts in order and come to a conclusion. Under our administration, we will drill for oil in Alaska. I am not a Texas oil man who's going to go convince America that we need to do this. I'm a guy who's looking to create blue-collar jobs to make sure that everybody in America succeeds. There are people today who aren't driving because energy prices have gotten so high that they have to pass up on that trip. And it's going to get worse. What happened in 2008 that led us into this recession in the first place? A spike in energy prices. It affects everybody in America who the President says he cares about. He cares about them enough to get them addicted on government programs so he can get guaranteed their vote when election time comes. That's what he cares about. We will have a dynamic energy policy that will be able to mine, build nuclear facilities, be able to create more energy independence in this country. We have an opportunity with natural gas. Do you realize our natural gas prices in America are about $2.50? In Europe, they're $15. In the Middle East, they're $17. In China, it's $18. You want to talk about a huge economic advantage for domestic supply of energy that now can be used for transportation as well as oil. And what is this president doing? Nothing. Not only nothing, he's now out there rattling his saber, or his EPA administrator, that they're going to shut down hydraulic fracking. As if this is some new boogeyman for the environmental movement. This radical ideology that puts earth above man. Well, why are they going after hydraulic fracking? It's been used to actually lower natural gas prices in this country from $13 to $2.50. Why are they going after them? We've drilled hundreds of thousands of wells in America and around the world using this technology. So why now? Well, because there's scary horror scenarios of the past of how they've been able to raise money and get votes by scaring the American public about the environment have turned out to be hoaxes. I was not one who bought into the climate science of man-made global warming. I did not sit on a couch with anybody. I didn't. Other than my wife, and by the way, my wife agrees with me on this issue, nor did I pass it as a governor of a state, a cap on carbon emissions, CO2 emissions, and then crow about it that they were the first in the country, and I can't remember what I said, it's up in New England somewhere where they did that. I said no. This is not climate science, it's political science. And we stood and opposed it, but now, since that has gone into the era of the dustbin, they had to find some new way to raise money. And it was perfect, because instead of drilling these wells in West Texas and in North Dakota, we're actually drilling these wells near Philadelphia and New York and Pittsburgh, through population centers. So now you can get people scared because it's in your backyard. This is just unconscionable that the President of the United States would now threaten investment, and that's what he's doing. He's threatening investment in drilling oil and gas wells in this country because of the uncertainty of the regulatory environment of what his EPA may do next. And he's going to cause gas prices to go higher as a result. He is undermining the very economic security of every single American. And we have someone in this race who, unlike some of the others, can call him on it, can paint the clear contrast on the issue of the environment, on the issue of health care, Obamacare, the #1 threat to freedom in America. I'm for repealing Obamacare, and you know what? I was never for anything like Obamacare before that. I didn't support a government-run healthcare system. I didn't advocate or still advocate for it. Anybody ever heard of health savings accounts?
Yeah.
You know who the author of health savings accounts was? The original author?
You.
Me. Along with John Bishop from Ohio, we did this bill back in 1991 or 92. And I've been an advocate. Why? Because I believe in free markets, free people. People having choices and control over their healthcare options. People having the resources themselves in their own accounts, not government or insurance companies dictating to you what you're going to have and not have, and rationing your care. It's a fundamental different view of how America works. And it comes down to the fundamental issues of what we're talking about here as Tea Party folks. And that is this. What kind of country do you want to leave to your children and grandchildren? Do you want to leave a country that is like, well, our founders' country, that believed and was willing to risk their lives to write in a document, not the Constitution, as I mentioned, great document. The document, the Constitution is the operator's manual of America. It's the how of America. We've gone far afield from that document. But there's another document that, without it, the Constitution, in fact, could be a very dangerous document. And that other document is usually printed with the Constitution, and that's the Declaration of Independence. And the reason the Declaration of Independence is important is because it tells every one of us who we are, what makes us Americans. People talk about American exceptionalism, and they have a hard time saying what it is. I'll tell you what it is. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them the right to live and the pursuit of happiness. That's what makes America. And the Constitution was drafted to do one thing: protect those God-given rights. Allow you, for the first time in the history of the world, to exercise liberty without an oppressive king, emperor, sovereign telling you what place you are in society. There was no equality before America. There was nobility, classes, there were privileged. All who ran the government, of course, for the benefit of the people. You ask them, that's what they'll tell you. They had to, because you're not capable of freedom. That's what the noble class would always say. We can't trust the average, ordinary person with freedom. Our founders were concerned about this. They were concerned about, can we trust the average person? And they said repeatedly, yes, with this proviso. John Adams said it about our Constitution. Our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the governance of any other. Unless we live unless our people are well formed. Even in our Declaration, you see a life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. People read it today and they think, well, great, we all do, I hope, believe in the sanctity and dignity of every human life. Right? We believe in liberty to pursue happiness. And people get hung up on this freedom, which is important. Liberty is important. But there are many, some of them protesting in the streets outside, who look at happiness, which is to do whatever they want to do. That's what our founders' idea of liberty was. To do whatever you wanted to do. Whatever made you happy. They need to go back and read what our founders said. Because originally, the word was not happiness. They debated the word property. But they said, you know, property doesn't quite do it. Because property is about stuff. And America is more than about stuff. America is about something bigger. Something more important. Something, a higher calling. So they use the term happiness, and go back and look at the dictionary definition of happiness at the time of our founders. Oh, they mention all these things, joy and pleasure and all these things. But they also say in these dictionary definitions, as our founders wrote about, that the true happiness comes from doing what you ought to do, doing God's will in your life. That's what true happiness is about. This is what I know gets everybody in the secular left just bonkers about my campaign. They just go crazy. Because I say that America is at its heart a moral enterprise. And the idea that America is going to be free and safe and prosperous if everybody goes out and does whatever they want to do. Try driving a car. If everybody gets behind the wheel and does whatever they want to do. Just put it in very simple terms. We can't exist as an ordered society. The question is, what kind of order do we want? What kind of order do we want? Whose values are going to be the ones that are commonly shared? Because America is not about an ethnicity. We are all hyphenated Americans. And that's a beautiful thing. Look, I'm a very proud Italian American. I love my culture. I love my food. Although it's Lent and I've given up a lot of that, so. But I do. I love that. But what America is a common set of values. And you know what? We argue and struggle over them. That's a beautiful thing. It's a good thing. James Madison referred to it as the perfect remedy. That First Amendment. Where everybody could come in, make their case. And the greatness of America is we have such diversity with this proviso. E pluribus unum. Right? Out of many, one. Essentially, we are going to have to hold together on some set of moral codes and principles. And we're seeing very evidently what the president's moral codes and principles are about. We see a president who is systematically trying to crush the traditional Judeo-Christian principles in this country. I mean, you saw it with Obamacare and the implementation of Obamacare, where his values are going to be imposed on a church's values. Where you saw in the Hosanna Tabor case, which was a Supreme Court case where the Obama administration said that they could force churches to hiring ministers who don't agree with their faith. It was a 9-0 decision. Even his appointees said, "What the heck are you thinking?" This is how radical this administration is. This is a question about what kind of America we're going to live in. One where the state and their ideology is imposed upon you, or one where we have an active, vibrant public square, people of faith and no faith coming in and arguing and making decisions, but doing it from the bottom up, not the top down. Well, we're concerned about guys who are very deeply committed to their faith, trying to impose their ideology on them. America is a deeply faith-filled country and was from the beginning. And it's because of that, because we understand how important faith is in our lives, that we respect other people's faith. And we tolerate it. And we allow it into the public square. We let people's non-faith. That's the beautiful thing, that people who have faith actually are more respectful of folks who have different faiths. It's the statists who are intolerant. They're the ones who want to impose their values on everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most important election of your lifetime. And you have an opportunity to make this election about big things, about the heart and soul of America, whether we will be an open and tolerant society, whether it will be a society that respects the dignity of all human life and the opportunity for people to rise and provide for themselves and others. These are big things. We need big vision. We need a track record that stands solidly on the things that we're talking about. Not someone who's been, as one person has suggested, a well-oiled weather vane. I didn't say that. Just saying. That's all. Just saying. You have a huge opportunity here in Arizona. A week, less than a week, you're casting votes. You have an opportunity to speak loudly. Shake those folks in Washington, D.C. We have an opportunity to go out on Tuesday and do something big. You know what? If you walk out of here and say, "I'm for Rick Santorum," that's a great thing. That's not enough. I need your help. I need you to go out there and talk to your friends. Do what's necessary to make this a huge, huge statement. No one's expecting us to do well down here. All the polls have us behind. But we have an opportunity with energy and enthusiasm to get a turnout of folks who want to see real change in Washington, D.C. I hope I can count on you to do that. Thank you very much. Two questions, because I've got to go back and get ready for, what do I have tonight? What am I doing? Okay, yes, ma'am. Oh, the question, I love that question. The question was, how's my daughter? Karen and I are very blessed. We've been married 21 years, and we're raising 7 children. Our youngest, as you may have heard, ran into a little bit of a problem about 3-4 weeks ago, which caused me to jump off the campaign trail. And she has recovered fully. She is doing great. I miss her because I've been away from her for a few days. But she is 100% recovered. She is a great blessing. She's an incredible blessing to our family. She is disabled. She has a disorder called trisomy 18, which is similar to Down syndrome, just trisomy 21. And as I mentioned the other day when we were talking about this subject, that 90% of these kids or more are aborted because the medical community thinks that these folks just have lives that aren't worth living. And I can tell you that she has changed my life. She has changed every life that she has touched. She is a great gift. And if we are a society who only values life that can do things, then you know what? All of us are in trouble. All right, I'll take one more question. Yes, ma'am, go ahead. Let me just say this. We need to fix the Social Security system and not wait 10 years to do it. We need to do the same thing with Medicare. We are at the verge of bankruptcy in this country, and we can't be waiting 10 years to fix any of these programs. We have, and I know people say, wow, that's riding the third rail of politics. But folks, we're at the verge of our credit rating's been downrated. I mean, we're in a serious economic situation, fiscal situation in this country. And when I was born, entitlement programs comprised less than 10% of the budget. It's now 60% of the budget. When I was born, defense was 60% of the budget. It's now 17% of the budget. So the idea, as some have suggested in this race, that defense is the problem, needs to go back and take some remedial math classes. The problem with entitlement programs, and let's see where they are. There's 72 of them in the federal government. The big three are Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And I love Paul Ryan. I love his plan for Medicare. It's the right idea. We just shouldn't wait 10 years to do it. We can't wait 10 years to do it. It's the right plan. It says we believe in you and freedom. And on Social Security, I was at the Villages the other day in Florida, which is sort of a retirement community, and we spent about a half an hour talking about Social Security, and obviously we don't have time to do that today. But I walked through the issues with respect to Social Security. And what you'll find is that if the President of the United States and leaders of our country are honest with you and lay out the situation that confronts this country, both fiscally and with respect to Social Security, you'd be surprised how much of a consensus we can form. I'll give you an example. When Social Security was put in place in 1937, life expectancy in America was 61. The eligibility age was set at 65. Why? Why was it set at 65? Well, because it was for folks who were very old, who couldn't provide for themselves. That's what Social Security was there to do. It wasn't there as a retirement program. It was there to eliminate and ameliorate poverty. Why? Because of an age group in America, the folks who had the highest poverty rate in 1937 were people over 65. Almost 70% were in poverty. And that's income-wise, how much income they were. And if you look at assets, who had the least amount of assets? Wealth. People over the age of 65 back in 1937. So we put together a program to try to help ameliorate that problem. Well, let's look at today. What's life expectancy today? About 80. What age group in America has the lowest poverty rate? Seniors. People over the age of 65, 9%. What age group in America has the most wealth accumulated per person? People over the age of 65. So when you hear, well, we need to raise taxes so we don't and can't cut any benefits, understand what we're doing. We're taking money from people who are out there with higher poverty rates, higher taxes, and hurting the economy by raising those taxes. And with less wealth, and we're shifting to people who are on average, let me give you another number. What year does most people take Social Security in America? 62. 70% of Americans take Social Security at 62. Anybody want to raise your hand if you think that the average 62-year-old is incapable of working anymore? But we are now borrowing money from China to pay 62-year-olds Social Security benefits as they go out and continue to work and get Social Security as a supplement to their working or to their investments. Now, was that what Social Security was intended to do? The average person who retires at 62 will stay, guess how many years on Social Security? 23 years. Was that what Social Security meant to do? So when you say, well, we can't, you hear the AARP always, oh, you can't touch Social Security. Well, why would we say that? I mean, how many people who are age 61, there are probably a couple in this room who are age 61. Right? You're 61. Would you object to the fact if I said, okay, we're going to move the early retirement age from 62 to 62 in 1 month? Would that dramatically affect your life? No. But see, these are things we can do that if we actually sat around, had a president who didn't want to go out and divide America, didn't want to go out and set up straw men and knock them down so they could get elected to political office, but actually wanted to solve problems in America, that we'd actually get to have a conversation with the American public and start trying to find a consensus of how we're going to solve problems. That's what leaders do. That's what I'm hoping to be able to accomplish in not just this race, but more importantly, for the severe problems that our country faces. And it's an opportunity. I see this as a blessed opportunity to be able to rally the American public to do what every generation of American wants to do. What? Leave this country better than you found it, right? Yeah. That's what America's all about. So, by saying I met several congressional candidates, and I know you've got a big race here, and I know I'm hopeful that you'll have a big turnout so we can make sure that we hold on to, we pick up this House seat, and that we increase the majority, because I'm going to need a lot of help when I'm elected president next year.